This webinar today is on VAT Reclaim using Infor Expense Management's new Taxback integration. So we will be recording the webinar, so anybody that registered for today's meeting and didn't happen to get in, we'll send them the recording afterwards anyway. Okay, so as we said, a lot of you, all the attendees are currently on mute, and we'd appreciate if you stay on mute for the duration of the webinar. And we will have a section at the end of the webinar today. We've put aside some time for Q&A, so you will get a chance to put your questions. Also, if during the webinar you want to put your question in text into the Q&A, just check that section of the Zoom, and you can put your question there, and we'll pick it up. Yeah. Now, if for any reason we don't get to all the questions due to time constraints, because we really want to keep this webinar down to 45 minutes, because we know you're all busy, we will email you afterwards with any responses. Or if you prefer, you can also email myself or Sinead, and we'll get back to you after the webinar as well. One final thing, we have a quick disclaimer. The webinar today includes a live demo of the Taxback VAT Connect analytics system. And so with all live demos, there's a potential for slow broadband connection, especially with everybody working from home these days. And it's Nigel, it's on his head. So there could be unexpected glitches, we don't know. So please bear with us if anything of that nature happens. But we really did want to include the live demo and not a recording, so that you get a true picture of what you'll be getting as part of the Taxback solution and the depth of information that you will have at your fingertips to analyze your VAT reclaim. So. Okay, with this, good morning and welcome everyone to today's 45-minute webinar. The title of the webinar is Learn How to Unlock VAT Reclaim Revenue with Infor and Taxback International. So it's a collaboration between Infor, represented by myself, Niall Howie, picture on the left, and the Taxback International team will be represented by Sinead Usher, who's the head of strategic partnerships, and Nigel, who's from the global sales team. So just to introduce myself, I've been working with Infor Expense Management for just coming on 10 years now. So my current role is solution architect, and I've deployed XM with many different customers and in many countries and verticals. So with that, I will hand over to Sinead and Nigel to introduce themselves. So Sinead, over to you.
Thanks a million, Niall. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sinead Usher. I'm the head of strategic global partnerships for Taxback International. I've been working with Taxback for almost 3 years now, but I've been working in the VAT industry for many more years than that. So I'm delighted to welcome you all here this morning. I'd like to hand over to Nigel to introduce himself now.
Thanks, Sinead. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Nigel O'Donovan. I'm a strategic manager for global enterprise sales at Taxback International. We are working on a longer title, but we haven't quite got there yet. So, but that's my title for now. I'm with Taxback International coming up on 11 years. So I have a lot of experience in dealing with global clients, worldwide, and I'm looking forward to sharing our solution with you today.
So just over to the objectives, if you can move the slide forward there, Nigel. Okay, so the objectives of today's call is really to discuss the partnership that we have between Infor and Taxback International, so you understand that. We'll explore in detail how VAT Reclaim can be a potential revenue opportunity, one that you may not be fully realizing today, so there's a good chance here to claim more money than you are today. We could even look back over a few years and pull back VAT that you haven't claimed in the past. So there's a good chance to get some untapped revenue. Next, we'll give you a high-level overview on how the integration works between Taxback and your existing Infor XM solution. Now, I know we probably have a mix of hosted and on-premise. So if you're an on-premise customer, you will need to be on a pretty recent release, the 10.2.14 release, but we can always discuss that afterwards if you're on an earlier release where the integration is not available, but we can discuss that. And finally, onto the key benefits. If you decide to adopt the integration, so what you will get, and we'll finish up, as I said, with the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you're on mute at the moment, so please type them into the Q&A panel, and we may answer some during the webinar, and others we'll try and take at the end of the webinar. But we'll try and get a flavour for all the questions that have been put in. Okay, so this is a joint development partnership between Taxback and Infor, and has resulted in the development of an integration allowing Taxback to extract expense and receipts data directly from expense management for the purpose of domestic and foreign VAT reclaim. So if VAT is not fully recovered today, then this is a fantastic opportunity to get a rapid return on your investment, and also to outsource the management of your VAT to Taxback, so they can do all of that work for you and hit all those deadlines across all the various countries they work within. So Taxback as an organization, they offer a comprehensive range of tax solutions, which will be presented here today. But I guess the main focus will be how they actually integrate with Infor and how they reclaim VAT on your behalf. Okay, so once you've agreed to proceed with the integration, a new license contract is agreed between yourselves and Taxback, so it's not with Infor. And then again, we'll discuss this in more detail, how it's going to work and once you decide to go ahead with it. Okay, so the solution is fully integrated and it's fully secure and will be available to cloud and on-premise, as I mentioned. So cloud will be the initial offering, and the on-premise will come later because there's additional complexities really around establishing access to your system through your corporate firewalls and things like that. So it's much easier for us for the hosted solutions. So we'll start with that, but you will not be left out if you have an on-premise deployment of XM. So Infor Consulting Services will be engaged by you, the customer, and will deploy the integration changes required on your XM solution. And then Taxback will be responsible for the actual retrieval of the data from your XM system, and then they'll reclaim the VAT on your behalf. And they have all sorts of fantastic tools to monitor that, and that's what Nigel will be demoing later in this presentation. So with that, I'll pass over to Sinead, and we'll start the main presentation, and we'll go through the other agenda items.
Thanks, Niall. Good morning again, everybody, and thanks for joining. So Taxback International, we're actually the global leaders in VAT Reclaim, and we work with companies of all sizes and complexities to create the additional revenue stream that Niall mentioned earlier. We work across all VAT jurisdictions, and we've clients in 180 countries and counting, with about 30 offices across the globe. And this map just gives you a visual of our footprint. You know, one of the reasons we're so successful in what we do is the fact that we have a local presence, knowledge, and global connectivity, because we're wholly owned, which is different to most of our competitors. Even the Big Four partner with us to support their clients. VAT is really complex, particularly foreign VAT, and we find that many companies actually shy away from reclaiming VAT at all due to these complexities. So continuous changes in legislation, multiple VAT rates, language difficulties, results in companies leaving a lot of money unclaimed each year. Now, Nigel is going to go through this in more detail, as he's more of an expert than me, but he's going to talk about how our combined tech integration and partnership with Infor can optimize your VAT almost immediately, even if you've already submitted claims in the past. Nigel? And we have about 12,000 clients worldwide, and we work with over half of the Fortune 500, again, and counting. And this map just gives you a snapshot of some of the brands that we work with across the world. And one of the reasons they choose us is because they know we can provide a consistent service across all of their entities. Our solutions are bespoke, as one size doesn't fit all when it comes to VAT. So regardless of your company size or complexity, we can devise a solution for all VAT challenges that you might have. Now, as I said, I'm not the expert here, so I'm going to hand over to Nigel, who's been in the industry even longer than me, and he'll go through our service in a lot more detail for you.
Thanks, Sinead. So good morning, everyone, again. The three things to remember, I guess, with regards to VAT recovery are that there are three different types of recovery. And now this is not something that you need to be overly worried about, because during implementation, we make you aware of this and we make you aware of how to recover. So there are two types of foreign VAT recovery, what are called an 8th directive and 13th directive recovery. So 8th directive would be your EU to EU travel, and 13th directive would be outside EU. So for example, your US employees from a US entity traveling into Europe. It's important to note that there are critical VAT deadlines for that type of recovery, for foreign VAT recovery. And those are for the previous year in general, from your expenses incurred from January to December 2019, for example. You have up until the 30th of June, which is one deadline passed for some countries, the 30th of December or the 31st of December, depending on the country to claim back. Now, the analysis that we do will show where the recovery is and what VAT deadlines apply to each country. The good news is for the 30th of June deadline, that due to COVID, those in some countries that have a strict June 30th deadline, that has been extended out by a few months. So there could still be an opportunity on that June 30th deadline to still put in a reclaim for you if the 13th directive is applicable. With domestic VAT recovery, domestic VAT recovery is a 6th directive claim, so it's employees traveling within their home country and incurring business expenses within that country. So the good news with this is that in a lot of countries, you can go back up to 5 years to address unclaimed domestic VAT. And this is, a fully legitimate process. You're entitled to claim it back. If you've never claimed it back before, as I mentioned, we can do a retrospective claim back up to 5 years in some countries, which in a lot of circumstances can lead to a significant recovery for your company. The claims that we provide on a domestic VAT recovery basis are 100% indemnified, meaning that there's no risk for you in submitting that claim to your local tax office. So what are the most common responses when we initially speak to companies about domestic VAT recovery? So a lot of companies would say we already recover all of the eligible VAT internally. So what we find with companies that are recovering internally is that they're not recovering everything. So most companies, particularly on domestic VAT, will tend to be risk averse. And rightly so in a lot of ways. When you're doing it yourself, they'll just look at the larger ticket expenses like maybe hotel or car hire. So on average, companies can lose out up to 30% of their claim by doing it internally themselves. With our technology and our infrastructure, we ensure that we're looking at all transactions. So every single receipt or invoice that goes into your Infor system will be analyzed through our machine learning technology and will be added to the claim to ensure that, and our message is always that we maximize your recovery, but always in a fully compliant manner. A second point would be that we've stopped traveling as a consequence of the pandemic, so there's nothing to gain right now. So that's fine, for particularly with the foreign VAT recovery. Yeah, that will be true for from March to so far to July of this year. But it's important to look back on 2019 spend as well, both domestically and internationally. Have you recovered anything from your 2019 travel? And if not, again, that's VAT and revenue that's left on the table for you to recover. So again, through an analysis, we can figure that out very quickly if you have VAT to recover from international travel or domestic travel, and we can recover that for you. So an example, I guess, of a continuous improvement success and a company that was looking after VAT recovery themselves in-house for the large part was with Electrolux. So we started working with Electrolux in 2016, in actually late 2015 into early 2016. They had been handling VAT recovery themselves mainly. They were using a third party to submit the claim internationally. All domestic was done internally. We analyzed their expense data through our VAT Connect intelligence software, which I'll take you through in a little more detail later. And we found that when we analyzed their data, that they were only recovering 8% of their full potential. And they thought everything was fine. They were recovering what they should have, but they were actually only recovering 8% of their potential. In the first year of working with them through our processes and through our solution, we tripled their recovery from, on average, every year between 25 and 30,000 to close to 100,000 in the first year. Last year, we submitted claims to the tax office for Electrolux for over 400,000 euros. So we've 10x'd their recovery or even greater in that period. And that's through our continuous improvement in educational programs and through our processes and solution as well. And again, identifying every single piece of data and every single expense that needs to go in with the claim, ensuring again that your recovery is maximized, but always in a fully compliant manner. So it's a real success story that they are really delighted with. Again, you know, when I take you through an analytics demo a little bit later, we'll show you how you can see really quickly from our analytics tool how compliant you are in terms of VAT recovery. And we break down those expenses, break down the entities and expense types that are not being recovered and the reasons they're not being recovered, to really give you insight into the into our solution and give you insight into why you're not getting back your full potential. And then we educate your employees on the importance of VAT recovery, and we should see a significant increase going forward, like as is in the case with Electrolux. So this gives an example of the hidden costs in travel. Typically, you know, European travel spend, you will recover about 20% of your travel cost, excluding flights. Global travel spend as a whole on your, you know, if you wanted to make a quick calculation of what I should be recovering globally, it's about 4% of your global travel spend. So an example of a VAT reclaim opportunity, you can see here, there's expenses for hotel, car hire, meals, and other, you know, your typical type of expenses when an employee goes traveling, and the VAT that can be recovered on each. So if you average it out at recovering 340 euro per trip, multiplied by 30 business trips in a year, 3 trips per traveler, you should see a VAT reclaim opportunity of just over 30,000 euro. Obviously, the more travelers you have and the more business trips that you make, the more recovery that you will make as well. The bigger your spend, but obviously the more recovery that we can get back for you as well. So as you can see, they're pretty large windfalls here. And again, if you take into account the domestic VAT recovery, multiply that by 5 years, then you're looking at a very significant refund. And again, depending on the amount of travelers and trips that you have, it's all relevant to each company. So in terms of the technology and how it works, our VAT Connect platform comprises of 3 core engines: VAT Connect Integrations, VAT Connect Intelligence, and VAT Connect Analytics. So VAT Connect Integrations is the engine that pulls in the data and the images from your Infor XM system. So we plug into the system and we pull in data. We look at different data fields like the country of the employee, where the employee is based, the destination country where they travel to, the expense type, hotel, car hire, etc., the date of the expense, the value of the expense, the currency of the expense. Now, there are other data fields that we look at as well, but those are the kind of mandatory fields that we look at. That data is then fed through to our VAT Connect intelligence software. So this is the rules and recovery engine. So this is armed with all the rules and regulations of every country that has a VAT recovery mechanism in it. So we first of all analyze the data and we identify the eligible expenses. So it will automatically rule out, you know, for example, US domestic expenses because there's no VAT recoverable on it. So it'll identify where your employee has traveled to, from what country that they're, you know, the entity country that they're based in, where they've traveled to, and if VAT is recoverable on the expenses that they're incurring. We then go back into your Infor system through integrations again, and we pull in the invoices or the images of the receipts that are associated with the expenses that we've identified. And we then audit those invoices through our machine learning and AI software to determine the compliance of the invoice. There's obviously a lot of work that goes on in the background with the machine learning and with our auditors and with our exceptions management team, document retrieval and corrections team, again, to ensure that we maximize your recovery, but always in a fully compliant manner. But these are the core engines that will process your claim and ensure that it's 100% accurate before submitting it to a tax office or providing it to you in a domestic VAT recovery report. Our VAT Connect intelligence software can also be programmed with your own rules. So again, as Sinead mentioned earlier, it's not one size that fits all. We can create a bespoke solution for each and every one of your entities, depending on the type of rules that they want to include. So for example, in some countries, your local entities may want to exclude business meals for a domestic expense because maybe they're unsure whether their employees have entered the expenses correctly and have put in the correct categories into the business meal. So they're unsure whether they're fully compliant. So they decide to exclude that, for example. So we can build that rule into the scope for that particular entity. So when our rules engine VAT Connect Intelligence goes into audit the data, it automatically excludes those things. And the final engine then is a VAT Connect Analytics engine. And this is your visibility on the process. This displays the results from intelligence and shows you exactly the process that's going on and exactly what's going on with all of your claims. And every receipt and every transaction that we submit to a tax officer that we provide to you in a domestic VAT recovery report is in your VAT Connect Analytics engine. So the VAT Connect Analytics engine gives you 24/7 transparency. It gives you an executive dashboard. It shows your total travel spend, your VAT recovery potential, your invoice compliance, tax office submission, tax office approval, etc. Shows domestic and foreign reports. Allows you to integrate the reports with your ERP system, and gives you also a document tracker and continuous improvement insights. So I'm going to pass back to Niall, who's going to take you through the typical onboarding process diagram.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. So just to go through how it all works in practice, let's just review the onboarding process at a high level, so we can see how you, the customer, get this integration deployed against your existing XM expense management solution. So the first thing to note is that it's both Infor and Taxback in the mix here. So after the initial indication from you that you're interested in taking advantage of this new integration, Infor will put you in contact with the Taxback key account manager, and they'll arrange the first meeting is where you get to discuss the Taxback offering in a bit more detail. Okay, part of the initial meeting will actually include a free VAT recovery analysis. So that will give you an idea of the potential for VAT reclaim. This will be presented to you at that first one-on-one meeting. So once some details are gathered, you can give the formal approvals then if you want to agree to proceed. So if you do agree to proceed, then it's a matter of getting the license contracts initiated between you and Taxback, not between you and Infor, but you and Taxback. And then in parallel to that, the Infor Consulting Services team will sign a work order with you for possibly about a day, maybe half a day per environment, and we'll get all the setup, the integration setup done on your system, and that will involve things like setting up Taxback's access to your XM system. So they'll need to have a user. It's one of these robot users in your system, so they won't actually get to log in or anything, but it uses that permissions against that user to grab the information, and that's all it gives them access to, is read-only access to the expense lines and the receipts, which is important to drive the application that Nigel was demonstrating there. So part of the Infor involvement will also be to make sure everything is up and running, and we'll do some verifications just to make sure the data is flowing over and back. And then once we verify that and you are essentially live at that point, you will be expected to then cease any existing VAT reclaim procedures you may already have used historically for reclaiming VAT on your expenses, for example, through your finance system, and then you cross over to using the new Taxback solution, but Taxback will walk you through that process as well. So Taxback will provide you account information, so you can log into that great tool that Nigel was demonstrating there. And that can also be extended to members of your finance team to get access to that information to do your analysis. So once the integration is fully deployed, then support for any XM side issues will be logged through your standard Infor Extreme, or the newer name for is Concierge. So that's where you track any XM side issues, and any issues relating to the VAT and the reclaim part, or even the app that Nigel was demonstrating there, you would go to your key account manager from within the Taxback team. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Now, if you can just move on to the next overview slide. So this is just a schematic showing you how it all works. So this is a high-level overview just showing you the new Taxback integration, how it allows direct access to your expenses and your receipts. And that's data stored in your XM database, and it uses what's called an API, or an application programming interface, to retrieve that data over a secure connection. The required data is expense reports that have been completed, so only those that have reached the done activity in your workflow. So we don't take any information from expenses that may not be approved or fully processed and paid, so we only take those that have fully completed the workflow. So you'll also know from the diagram that the arrows are in one direction only. So that's indicating that the integration can only read data from your XM database. They can't actually do any updates. So that's important as well, that you know that. The solution is dependent upon the required software licenses to be in place between you and Taxback, and also for Infor to provide Taxback some technical details on how they can actually connect into your system, and the user and the password of that robot that they can make those calls through. That gives them the permissions to their systems. Okay, so initially the solution, as I said at the beginning, is for hosted or cloud XM customers, and then we'll eventually roll that out to on-premise customers as well. And as I said, you need to be on a particular release of XM to utilize the integration. Okay, so that's demonstrated over there on the lower right of the picture, those on-premise customer 3 and 4. Okay, as a prerequisite, obviously, for the on-premise customers, we will expect your system to already be externally available. And that is typically the case with most on-premise customers these days, because they're utilizing the XM mobile application. So in that sense, it works outside of your network. But if that's not the case, then we'll need to work with you to extend the XM system through your firewalls so external access is possible. But as I said, most have that already today, so that shouldn't be a concern. So with that, I will hand it back to Nigel.
Thanks, Niall. So just a quick summary, I guess, on why clients would choose Taxback International. So we ensure your refunds are maximized. I mentioned a couple of times that we maximize your reclaim, but always in a fully compliant manner. There's complete automation in terms of it's a paperless solution in the majority of recovery for Infor clients. We take data and invoices and receipts from your Infor system that can be used in 6th and 8th directive claims. For 13th directive, it is called a paper claim, so that's a little bit more complicated, but it will be the smaller part of your recovery. But again, we can do that fairly simply for you. Our continuous improvement programs ensure that we're increasing your recovery every year. Our machine learning and AI software, again, ensures that your recovery is maximized, because we have the capacity to look at every single receipt and expense item that goes into your Infor system, to analyze it and ensure it's compliant for VAT recovery and submit it with your claims. We guarantee compliance, and we offer 100% indemnification on the foreign and domestic reports and recoveries or claims that we send to the tax office. We operate to the highest levels of security in terms of we are ISO 27001 and 9001 certified. We're fully GDPR certified. Your data is completely secure when we're taking it from your Infor system when we're using it and when it's at rest at Taxback International. It's secure to the highest level of security. We use it's a cloud-based system, and we use a third-party center in Dublin to store your invoices. We actually use 2 centers to ensure that it's fully secure. Your data never leaves the EU as well. And as we mentioned on a couple of occasions, we can offer a global solution for all of your entities, recovering VAT worldwide. Last year, I think we recovered VAT in over 170 countries worldwide, in all 46 countries where you can recover on an international basis, and domestically in over 170 countries.
Okay.
So I'm passing back to Sinead, I think, just to discuss on where we're going to get started.
Absolutely. So thanks, Nigel. One of the things that we do first really is as Niall mentioned, is we do a VAT Reclaim analysis. So within your Infor system, there will be a report that can be easily run to do the initial analysis. So it will be that we won't look at images at that point. We will literally just look at some of your data. We will be able to identify the potential there, and we will set up a call with you and go through it. Usually we do that in conjunction with the one-to-one consultation service, and we go through your entire process, but we can do either of those in as separate pieces. I think the most valuable way to do this is to set up an initial demonstration. Nigel, as he said, he went through it very, very quickly there earlier for you, but there is a lot more insights that you can be gained by going through a one-on-one consultation service. So in order to avail of that service, it's very simple. You liaise with your Infor account manager, and they will refer you directly to us, and we will then connect you with the appropriate person within our team, depending on where you're based. We will set you up with a local or regional representative, and they will go through the entire process with you. So you never walk away wondering what am I to do next. They'll go through the entire process with you. So I think now we're ready for questions.
I think we started a couple
Niall,
of minutes.
Yes, can you? I'll leave you to do the to do MC there.
Okay, I'm not sure we'll get through all the questions.
Sharing. Yeah, and Nigel, if we stop sharing, then everybody can be on. They'll be able to see all of us on screen then. Okay,
so we have a number of questions, so I'm not sure we'll get through them all, but we will get back to you after the webinar if we don't get time, because I just see we're on bang on the button here. So how will the transfer of data take place, and how will you get our receipts? So that the Taxback system, as I say, connects to XM via this API call, and that's over a secure HTTPS connection, not to get too technical, but it's secure in the data transfer, and then I'll let Nigel maybe answer how they secure the data once it gets to their side, which is also a question here. So how can you guarantee the data security? So maybe Nigel, you can answer that one from the Taxback perspective.
Yeah, so the data, as I mentioned, is through cloud platform. It's secured through a third-party company in Dublin. As I mentioned, all of our services are certified. We've never not been able to work with a client because of security.
Okay.
We have security teams as well. Obviously, security is huge with a lot of global clients at the minute, but we have, security officers and security teams and GDPR managers that we can set up calls with and take your security teams through it in terms of going.
Okay. Just on a related topic on security, just before we move on to the other questions, there's one here. Does Taxback have ISO certification for data security?
Yeah, we're ISO 27001 and 9001 certified.
Okay, question from
I might jump in there for 1 second,
Yeah.
Niall. That just we actually have banking level security, and because of our relationships with banks globally, it was one of the obviously when you're dealing with banking, it's very important that they see you at the highest level of security. So we've passed every test from the banking perspective as well, and I think with some of our partnerships on the banking side, you can be very confident that everything we do from a data perspective is highly secure.
Okay, so GDPR is a given as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, a great question from Orlando. Is Taxback only able to audit XM, or are you able to audit purchase invoices in Sun? So I'm taking it this is third-party invoices. So
Yeah.
from the integration point of view, we're talking about XM expenses, but I'll let Nigel handle the purchase invoices part of it.
Yeah, so the purchase invoices would be part of our recovery as well, and part of what we do. They would go through the same process as the T&E recovery. It depends on the ERP system that you use. That will decide, whether we have a connection with it or not. With some ERP systems, we do have a direct connection.
Okay.
With others, we don't. But there's a couple of things that clients can do. They can give us access to the system, or we can send them data fields to run a report. We'll identify the invoices that we're interested in auditing further. We send them back the list of those invoices. They upload them to secure site and SFTP site, and we audit those through our machine learning and AI software to determine if there's recoverable. And those invoices then are included in a international claim with the T&E invoices.
Okay, I'll try and get through another couple quickly. So one from Orla, if an employee selects an XM that they have a VAT receipt, but the image they attach does not contain the VAT number, will the system recognize this and exclude it from the reclaim?
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't matter what your employee, whether your employee selects to have a VAT receipt or not. Because with the best will in the world, your traveling employees are not going to be VAT experts, so they're not going to really know, first of all, what a VAT invoice is or whether it's compliant or not. So our intelligence technology identifies the invoices that we're interested in auditing further, and then those invoices are fed through a machine learning technology, which will determine whether it's compliant or incompliant. If the machine learning technology can't read the invoice for whatever reason, it goes to an exceptions management team, and that's a team of experienced auditors with over 20 years experience. And again, the claims are indemnified. So, we operate what's called a clean claim policy. So we ensure that 100% accuracy.
And on the XM side, we also do the calculations on VAT, but only if it's indicated as a VAT receipt. But those calculations will pretty much be irrelevant now that the Taxback solution will take over from that. I think we've just gone a couple of minutes over the time. So if I have a technical issue, who do I contact? Infor XM or Taxback International? So I guess it depends on the nature of the problem. So if it's specifically a problem on the X, maybe Taxback can't communicate with XM because the user password has changed, you can raise an incident in your concierge. And if it's an issue with the actual VAT reclaim part, then you can contact your Taxback key account manager. If you're not sure, I suppose just contact your key account manager if it's VAT related, and if they identify it as an XM problem, then they'll contact us and they'll raise the ticket in Infor Extreme, and we'll get that detail. So we'll triage it for you, but if you have a fair idea it's XM, you can put it into our systems. Otherwise, it's the key account manager. Okay, and with that, I think we have a couple more questions, but I think we'll just get back to them on email because I'm just realizing we're 23 minutes past the hour now. So thank you very much to everybody that attended the webinar today. I believe some people may have had problems getting in, so I will make sure that everybody that registered will get that recording within the next few days so they don't miss out on anything. Anything from you, Sinead, just before we close up?
No, I've just reiterate the point I made earlier about, obviously Nigel flew through the demo just to try and fit it in within the time frame, but there is a lot to be gained from setting up a call with us. And I think one of the most important points that we probably didn't stress enough is that these are all free, no obligation conversations that you have. So have a chat with us. Don't feel that by connecting with us that you're going to be signed up there and then on the phone. We want to make sure that this is something that is really of value to you and something that you are really comfortable with moving forward on. We don't charge anything. In fact, it's all contingency fee based. So until we get money back for you from the authorities, we don't get a penny. No matter how far along the process we go or how long we spend working with you, there's absolutely no obligation, and we do not charge you anything until we get the money back from the authorities for you. So just to reiterate that, if we didn't stress it enough earlier.
Okay, it's important. All right, thank you everybody. Well, I think we'll end the webinar here. Any questions, just email me afterwards and I'll get back to you as well. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Time.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.